Hello, my lovely, and welcome to episode 18 of the Prosperous Yogini podcast. And I'm super excited about today's episode because today is the first request episode. Yes, you've heard it. The first request episode ever on the Prosperous Yogini podcast. So if you have something you want to ask me, if you want to tap into my 13 plus years of experience of being a yoga teacher, of being self-employed, running my yoga business, being in the yoga industry, ask away. If I can help you, I will. And this request comes from Flo Yoga in Brighton, one of the Prosperous Yogini listeners. Flo asked me a few weeks ago now what I have learnt over the years from teaching yoga to young children. Specifically, I teach toddler and preschool yoga. So this episode is going to have two parts to it. One, what I have literally learnt from doing yoga with young children. Like I'm tell you now, we all should practice yoga like toddlers. We should probably all do yoga with toddlers, whether you own one or not. I'm also going to talk about the business side of things, what it has meant for me, having a specialism that I'm passionate about, having a specialism that I have been consistent in. I've been teaching toddler yoga for over 12 years now, and just the impact that is had on my yoga business. So I guess the great place to start is, how did I end up teaching toddler yoga? I had just finished my 500-hour yoga teacher training course. I took it with the British Will, and I went straight in, like literally the following weekend, I'd signed up to a pregnancy and postnatal teacher training course. This was one of the best decisions I ever made early on in my teaching career. I hadn't yet started having babies, but I'd got married. I knew I wanted to have children. I was interested in having children. And interestingly, I actually got pregnant in my pregnancy and postnatal yoga teacher training course. So there I am, growing babies. I'm in it. I'm in the mix of it. I'm growing babies myself. I've got young babies. I totally understand where these mums are coming from. I'm passionate about using yoga to support them. And it was just really working. My classes were busy and everything was great. And it was getting to the stage in mum and baby yoga that the babies were starting to crawl. They were starting to walk, and they were too mobile for mum and baby yoga. And one of the mums just one day turned around to me and said, "Amy, what's next?" And I was like, oh, I don't know what's next. I better do something. And toddler yoga seemed the most logical step and the next step. So I looked into it at the time. Now this is going back 12 plus years. I looked into it, and there wasn't actually what I could see a specific toddler yoga teacher training course. I could do a children's yoga course which said it started from the age of 3, but I'm thinking I want to teach children from about 14, 15 mums up until the age of 4. Now my background, if you don't know, is I actually started life as a secondary school music teacher. I went to music college, and from music college went straight into training to be a music teacher. And age 22, I am teaching secondary school music. As part of that job as a music teacher over the years, I went into primary schools, and I was used to working with young children. So I got in contact, to be honest, with the British Will, who I was with at the time, and said, "Hey, look, I'm a yoga teacher. I've got a PGCE. I've taught children from the age of literally 3 up until the 18. I want to run a yoga class for children aged 14 months to 4 years old. I'm confident I can do it. Are you happy to insure me?" And they said yes. And I actually started teaching toddler yoga just based on my previous experience of working with young children, previous experience of singing with young children, previous experience of being a teacher, school teacher, and all my experience as a yoga teacher. And I don't mean to go off topic, but I'm going to go off topic here. I think yoga teachers just forget this. They think about their training. I've done 200 hours. This is where I'm at. I've done 200 hours plus a yin course. This is where I'm at. And you don't see the wider picture of your previous experiences and your personal experiences that all are coming into the mix as to what you could offer people. Sometimes you don't need to go out and invest in more training. Sometimes you do, but sometimes you don't. So I literally created my own toddler yoga class based from what I know would work with young children and the singing musical background I have. And I have to say, I taught my first class. I remember it so vividly. And I went home and I rang my mum and I was like, Mum, I was born to teach toddler yoga. It had just worked. And I have to be honest, like hands on heart, the way I teach toddler yoga, the content, the way I deliver it, even the songs, it's not wildly different today. In fact, the way I've designed my toddler yoga class just works so well. It is the backbone of my toddler yoga teacher training course. When people come onto my toddler yoga teacher training course, I basically say, look, this is how I do it. And I know this works. I'll completely support you to do it your way. I'll completely support you to do it differently, but honestly, this works. And what happens is people of course, will bring in their own unique ideas, their own unique experiences, but they largely copy what I do. And they're like, Amy, I can't believe it works. Not just that, I can't believe you have to do the same thing every week, or they get angry with you. That's what it's like teaching toddler yoga. You literally get off, it's the opposite end of the spectrum. Like sometimes you feel like you've always got to be creating new, exciting sequences for your students. No. Toddler yoga, you largely do the same thing every week, because if I deviate from what I normally do, including the order that we do the asana in, the props I get out, they let me know. I get told off. They thrive on this set routine. And if you're like, well, I'm sure they get bored, I'm telling you now, and I'll repeat this a bit later on in the podcast, I have children come to me 14 months old. They come week in, week out, right up until the turn they go to school. It blows my mind. I'm like, are you not bored yet? They love it. And what's so good about yoga, you know this, yoga meets you where you are now. And for toddlers, and for young children, this is so brilliant for them, because they all learn new skills and developmental movement patterns at different times. And it just allows them, it's a physical practice that allows them to meet them where they are now. So what have I learned from doing yoga with toddlers? I joke, but actually I really genuinely mean this, that toddler yoga is yoga in its purest form. It is yoga without ego. Now, we harp on about the ego. We give the ego a bad time, how it's bad, how it gets into the way of the practice. Look, the topic of the ego is for another day. Yes, the ego can get in the way of a lot of things. The ego is also a very strong driving force, but let's park that for now, because basically most of the time in our yoga practice, the ego will push us to do things we're not ready to do and lead to injury, or stop us from giving things a go in case we fail. The ego wants to keep us safe. It's part of the beautiful brain that we have. So toddler yoga is literally egoless. Without sounding rude, they don't give a shit. They don't give a shit whether they can do handstand or not, all right? I'll give you this. The handstand is my most favorite example. So I'm about to teach a group of adults vinyasa yoga, and I say to them, okay, we're going to work towards handstand today. This causes a response in people. It goes from sheer excitement. People love handstand. It's their pose. They look great in handstand, or they're just excited to try. They've not done it before. To the other end of the spectrum, complete fear. They're scared of going upside down. They've not done handstand since they were a child. When they were a child, they couldn't do handstand. They've tried it the last few weeks. They've not been able to do it. Oh my God, I wish I wasn't here at this class. Right? Okay, there's an argument there to not tell the class that you're doing handstand as the peak posture. Topic for another day. Toddlers, well, first of all, if I started my class with, okay, children, today we're going to work up towards handstand, they'd look at me as if I'm weird, because we start our toddler yoga class by singing a song to welcome everyone to class. Then we absolutely must do our namaste hands and an om. They absolutely love an om, the magical sound that is om. And I do that every week. If I don't, I would get told off. But it's complete egoless yoga. They love handstand, by the way. We call it our two-legged dog. They will walk their legs up against the wall, or mummy or daddy or granny, whoever's come to class with them, will assist them into handstand using the pelvis. Or they'll jump around like a frog, which brings them up into handstand by accident. Or they're not in the mood for handstand at the point where we're doing it. So they might lie down, they might be doing something else, they might be having a snack. Like, it literally isn't like, oh my God, everyone's doing handstand. I can't do that pose. I'm not going to do it today. It's, I'm doing handstand. That looks fun. I'm going to give it a go. Or I can't be bothered, or I'm busy doing something else. The ego hasn't even come into play, and this is just liberating. You're like, everyone should practice yoga like this. Everyone should practice yoga like this, because it allows you to tap intuitively into where your body is in that present moment. It allows you to respond to what your body needs. Here's my next point. So Iyengar, I can't remember where it is. I think it's in his book, Light and Yoga. But one of the pieces of advice that Iyengar says is spontaneously, or it might be Desikachar, sorry if I've got this wrong, but they advise spontaneously take Shavasana at any point within your practice when you need it. Now, yoga teachers, think about this. You're teaching Vinyasa yoga. I'm thinking of all the years I've taught Vinyasa yoga. How many times has someone gone, oh, I'm really tired, I'm just going to lie down in Shavasana? I'm going to say never. The odd person might have just stepped out and taken child's pose for a few breaths, but I have never had anyone go, oh, I just need to lie in Shavasana, I'm going to lie down. My toddlers will lie down in Shavasana. It might be the first thing they do. Just spontaneously lie down. It might not even be on their mat. It might not even be with their mum. But if they need to lie down, they will lie down. The other thing they do, which I know contradicts against Iyengar's advice, is they may need to eat in class. I know Iyengar says you shouldn't eat 4 hours before practice. Toddlers aren't quite down with that piece of advice, it's fair to say. So they've taught me to practice yoga, which is an egoless yoga, a yoga in its purest form. In that place, we tap into what our body needs in this present moment. We're not affected by what others are doing in the class, what we think we should do, what we think we should look like. And I'm like, oh, if only the rest of the world was more like this. Everyone should teach toddler yoga. Everyone should come and do toddler yoga. As a yoga teacher, if you teach toddlers, you have to let go of this concept that everyone's going to stay in their mat and everyone's going to do what they tell you asking them to do at the same time. And I know I've worked with some teachers that find this so hard to start with. Well, you know, they're not all doing it. And I do down dog, and then a few minutes later, a child's doing down dog in the back of the room. Or I have a child that comes to class, they literally sit on their mat and eyeball me for the whole class as if I'm crazy. They go home and they literally reenact the whole class. And you've got to get past, if you're going to teach toddlers, you've got to get past this idea that everyone's going to do what you are asking them to do. And if you think about it, that's not necessarily a bad thing. I will say all the time when I'm teaching yoga, you're the person flying the plane. This is when I'm teaching adults. You decide. But we like to be told what to do because we think, or we don't trust our own innate judgment as to what is right for our body, which is so sad. Toddlers are just tapped into this because the ego hasn't landed yet. The ego hasn't landed that. Along with just having fun and playing within our practice, which is why we should do anything. Like, I always talk about why do anything if not for love? Like, why do anything if it doesn't directly relate to your basic survival needs? Why are you doing it? And we'll do it for love. We'll do it for love, for joy, for play. And when you come to your yoga mat, it should be for those reasons. The toddlers have also reminded me of these natural ergonomic movements that as adults we so often lose. And that is primarily the squat. So one of the things I found really interesting when I first teaching toddler yoga was when I asked them to bend at the waist, like we do a fun sun salutation. Yes, it has a song, and it's mainly for the adults in the room, but some of the older children will get involved. I noticed that they don't bend at the waist. They just come down into a squat. If you watch young children aged 18 months to 3 years old play, they'll often play in the squat. Now, how many times as yoga teachers do we work into the hips to open up so we can come into a squat? The squat is part of our natural ergonomic movement. Unfortunately, we hang out on things like chairs and toilets, which I'm not suggesting you suddenly abandon the toilet, but it's in our everyday life movement, we begin to forget the squat. And I have so rediscovered my squat and squatting thanks to my toddler yogis, because I'm like, actually, instead of bending at the waist, I should make the effort to squat down. That is a better, more efficient movement. That is what I'm designed to do. So beyond the joy of teaching little yogis and how much fun it is, the power has been immense to my business. First of all, through my in-person yoga classes, so I teach pregnancy, mum and baby and toddler yoga. I taught more in person pre-pandemic. I taught vinyasa and yin as well, but they're now my online offerings. But I am still teaching, despite COVID pandemic, 12 years later, in-person pregnancy, mum and baby and toddler yoga classes. I just love doing that. I just love it, because what I have learned from teaching that combo is the power that yoga has to create community. Through my yoga, it's got sweet Fanny Adams to do with yoga. Through my yoga classes, pregnant women have met other pregnant women who then go on and have coffee and go for walks together, who come to my mum and baby yoga classes, who form WhatsApp groups and long-term friendships, who then come to toddler yoga. Toddler yoga, they go for coffee afterwards. It's so much more than just a yoga. It's about the community. It's also been a real honor for me. I talk about this quite a lot, but it is a genuine honor for me to be involved in young children's lives. And what I mean is, like, I meet them in the womb. They come to me for pregnancy yoga. I get involved in this woman's sacred time in her life when she might be becoming a mother. She's growing a baby. I hear her birth story. She then comes to mum and baby yoga. I get to meet baby. If I'm super lucky, I get to hold baby if she needs to go to the toilet. This baby then comes into my toddler yoga classes. And I have had children that I've taught as bumps in the womb go all the way through, just come week in, week out to my classes until the time that they go to school. And if you're a parent and your child's hit primary school age, you know, particularly with your first, how hard it is to send that first child off to school. And I feel like I relive that. I feel like I relive that term, that summer term, when this child that's been coming to my yoga classes for the last 4 years is off to school, and I get these beautiful cards that I keep and just gifts and thank you notes that I keep. And it's just such an honor. I can't believe that this is my job. This is the experience that I get to have just because I rock up every week and share yoga with them. This is how powerful yoga is in creating community. Now, I'm talking about communities of mums, bumps and little ones, but community is community. You can create community of men that need support. You can create community of young women, young teenagers that need support. You can create community of menopausal and perimenopausal women. Yoga's just part of it. I'm like, yoga is important, but not that important. Yoga is just part of the puzzle. And I think that's good to hear as a yoga teacher, because we get really het up on, you know, our yoga teaching being this certain way and us showing up every week and being this amazing teacher. And we forget that our classes are not just about yoga. Our classes are about creating community. And that's certainly what I've learned from teaching toddler yoga. If you're watching on YouTube, you're like, something's just fallen down from Amy's shelf. I am not hitting record. I'll show you what it is in a minute. There's a great story behind that. But I'm mid-rant. So teaching toddler yoga for such a long time has taught me that yoga is way more. Your yoga classes are way more than just a simple class. So if you're listening, I'm looking at my Mac, which is recording the audio right now. If you're listening online, you'll have no idea what just happened. But above me in my little cupboard where I record my podcast, something just fell down. It's my robin. I've got a thing about robins that my granny, my beloved little granny, is a reincarnated robin. Every time I see her, every time I see a robin, I see her. And someone very kindly bought me a robin once because I go on about it so much. Anyway, she must be coming to send me a sign. I'm going to take it as a sign that she's proud of me. She's proud of me. So other things that I have learned from teaching toddler yoga for 12 plus years in terms of my yoga business is the power of being endlessly consistent. I literally have taught toddler yoga for 12 years. I teach term time only because I've got children, and actually if you're running classes for children, most classes work in term time. You don't have to, but it really works for me, so I run in term time. I have actually the venue that I'm teaching at now, I've taught at for 8 plus years, and I've just turned up every Tuesday and every Friday in that venue to teach toddler yoga, give or take COVID pandemics and a growing baby as myself. I've just turned up and I've remained endlessly consistent. The power has been that I don't have to spend hours, minutes even, creating content about toddler yoga to persuade people to come to toddler yoga. I think that there's too much out there at the moment telling yoga teachers that look, I know I will tell you to do this stuff because it has a value, but you need to have X amount of people on your mailing list. You need to be consistent in showing up on social media. You need to have a content schedule. And I'm like, darling, I want to teach yoga. Not just that, I want to teach yoga to 3-year-olds. I'm crazy, that when you're going out and teaching classes locally, do you know what you need to do? You need to go out, you need to set up a class. You definitely need to do some marketing. You definitely need to talk to people. How do you talk to people locally? Yes, Instagram, Facebook groups, a little bit of good search engine optimization. So if someone does a local search, toddler yoga, Cornwall, you come up. I'm not disputing that doesn't work, okay? But chatting to people around in the businesses around the venue that you're teaching in, putting up some flyers, literally physically talking to people, telling people that you're going to start running classes, and then show up and run these classes. I'm in a place now, because I've taught toddler yoga, pregnancy yoga, mum and baby yoga in the St Agnes area for 8 plus years. There's like a knowing. Someone gets pregnant in the local area and they know they can come to my classes. This is the power of word of mouth. And this takes time to build. And you're only going to build this through consistency. I do put on my social media, like when there's a new block of term of classes, I will promote it there. I will send out to my newsletter those people that I know are interested in my classes. I will let them know bookings open. But my classes largely fill themselves. Like pregnant women seem to find me. They get pregnant, they seem to know. I know if you Google search around pregnancy yoga in the area I'm teaching in, it comes up. That has got something to do with the search engine optimization of my website. Also, I've got a Google Business Center listing, and Google Business Center listings are really useful for local searches. The challenge is when we're thinking about marketing and just getting visible so we can build connections with people, like honestly that term, even the term marketing makes me go ugh, because all marketing is talking to people and building relationships, but people need to find you. There is differences, I totally acknowledge, between if you're trying to get yourself visible in the online world, which is going to be a much smaller fish in a huge ocean, but locally, particularly if you have a specialism, and this is the power of the specialism. For many years, I was the only person teaching toddler yoga in Cornwall, only person. Then I started to train teachers to teach toddler yoga, and there are still some of those people out there teaching toddler yoga in Cornwall. thanks to my training courses. My training course is now online. If you're like, Amy, I'm totally sold, I'd love to train to teach toddler yoga. You can train to teach pregnancy yoga, postnatal yoga and toddler yoga with me. I have a 3-course magic bundle. And those 3 courses, 60-hour pregnancy, 40-hour postnatal, 40-hour toddler yoga, those 3 courses would allow you to build a business, a yoga business, teaching bumps, mums and little ones, which is so needed because women with young children need community more than ever. They need places where they can go, where they feel welcome and totally accepted. And your yoga classes can create that. So if you're interested in that, feel free to drop me a message on Instagram or send me an email. I'll put the link to those courses in the show notes. So that's what I've learned, the power of word of mouth and being consistent. And just knowing that sometimes class numbers do fluctuate. Sometimes they go up and sometimes they go down. But because I've stayed steady and been in it for the long game for so long, I've just seen that. So if I have like a start of a term where my class numbers aren't so busy, I'll give you an example. Toddler yoga, to be honest, I've been pretty consistently busy for years. And I think there's a slight difference in the toddler yoga. They've got a slightly longer window in which they would come to class. But pregnancy yoga is a great example because pregnant women will come to class at the earliest at their 12-week scan. But to be honest, they mainly come from 14, 15, 16 weeks plus when they actually begin to have a bump and feel pregnant. And then they stay with you until they have their baby. So it's really actually only like a 6-month window. So if you do teach something like pregnancy yoga, mum and baby yoga is the same, you are always needing to have new students come through your business. Okay, that's the challenge of it. The joy of it is they're going to come through your business because they need yoga, they need community, they need you. But like a few months back in like, was it April, May 2022, my pregnancy yoga class was really quiet. Like I had 2 or 3 booked in. I was like, oh. Now, had I been new into my career, not been through that before, then my beautiful brain would have kicked in, ego would have kicked in, like, oh, there's too many pregnancy yoga teachers out there. You're not any good anymore. Pregnant women can't afford to come to yoga anymore. They don't want to come to yoga anymore. They're scared of getting COVID. All of these things that we will make up. And I was like, no, I know. I tell my people I train that classes do this. Sorry, I realise if you're listening, you can't hear it. My hands are going in and out. Classes get bigger and get smaller. It's just the nature of it. And literally by June, I had a full class of 10 women. So that has been something I've also learned from teaching yoga to young children, that your class numbers are going to go up and down. Just remain consistent, turn up and serve with joy, with a mission to use yoga to create community and support bumps, mums and little ones. And the relationships that you build are golden, are gold dust. It is an honour. I have the best job. I have the best job in the world. And I do like to think I really know how to help yoga teachers build a yoga business. And particularly if you're interested in building a yoga business around teaching pregnancy, postnatal and toddler yoga, I really do think you should hook up with me because I've got a great proven track record and I've been running my training courses now since 2017, and I've got a great track record of teachers who are now running very similar businesses to me, and just fills my heart with joy when I see them share something on social media. I'm like, yes, mums getting access to yoga. Okay then, so that's the first request podcast and a robin flying in. I will be back next week. If you do have anything you'd like me to talk about, please ask. I am here to help you to build, grow and scale your yoga business. I want nothing more than you to have a profitable, sustainable yoga business. I was listening to something today and it's got me a little bit fired up actually. I knew this already, that the yoga industry is currently worth about $37 billion. It's projected by 2027 to be $67 billion. This is globally. I'm like, okay, So there's a lot of interest, there's a lot of need for yoga. It should be totally possible for every yoga teacher to create a business that energetically and economically serves them. And the only thing that's stopping us right now is a belief that it's not possible. All right, my darlings, on that completely random rant, I will see you all next week.